of fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll remember this.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optics Podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin. And today, we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts and insights on Fast X, aka Fast and the Furious 10 Part 1, because there is a Part 2 coming that has been confirmed. That is not a spoiler.
Possibly 3, according to Vin. I don't know how that will work.
I don't know. I just, you know what? He wants to keep the family tradition going.
You did miss your chance to say hello, family, at the beginning.
I did. I really did. I'm sorry, y'all. Hello, family. How are you doing today?
This is the family episode. It's funny that this is the family episode, but Little Mermaid isn't.
Yeah. Well, this is a family episode where we crack Coronas and, you know, it's like a cult with cars and all this crazy racing stuff. We don't even know what this franchise is about anymore. Like I
don't think there was a single race in this one. I mean, there was, but then it immediately ended because of evil wrongdoings. So I don't think there was a single race. Like they just completely abandoned that part of the franchise.
I think so I was actually talking to people in our screening and we were trying to figure out what is the franchise with like the longest running franchise, like movie franchise. Like Star Wars doesn't really count.
I mean, James Bond is the longest as far as years.
Is there more James Bond movies than there is Fast and Furious movies?
It's probably close, but definitely like years, obviously, because James Bond takes their time. It's been going since like the 50s or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more of like a continuous storyline within the same franchise. Because obviously, well, I guess James Bond is all part of the same lore. I don't know if they're just like one-offs or, I mean, I know, you know, with the newer ones with Daniel Craig, they're, you know, it's all one. You know what? I'm going down a rabbit hole I do not need to be going down right now. So as I mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be covering our spoiler-free review of Fast X, aka Fast 10. I know how much Devin hates Roman numerals, but this is the first part of 1, maybe 2. We don't really know.
X is nice and easy. That's an easy one.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, obviously, they weren't just going to call it Fast 10 because X is...
I mean, Fast 10 your seatbelts. It just works.
You know what? I would not have hated that title at all. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to our show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at FilmOptics. That is optics with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptics@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. So, Devin, are you ready just to dive on in? Are you ready to hit the streets? You know, get some Coronas, spend time with some family, and talk about this movie. Family. And actually, really quick, Devin, how have you been? I feel like we haven't really talked in a while, even though we pretty much talk every day. But what have you been up to this past weekend, and what have you been watching?
Yeah, I've been, speaking of long-running movie franchises, I've been trying to dive into Jedi Survivor, trying to get into that game. It's definitely had some technical difficulties, but it's definitely addictive like that first one was.
I need to get into it. For right now, like I was like, do I buy for PC? Because, you know, everything on PC nowadays is like cursed for whatever reason. They don't optimize these games. So I was like, do I just play it on PS5? I don't know. I'm definitely going to play it before the end of the year. It's just been a lot trying to get back into a routine after moving and getting stuff for our apartment.
That makes me think, how's there never been a good Fast and Furious game? Like there was that terrible one that came out a couple of years ago.
The one that looked like it was like PlayStation 2 graphics, and then like Vin Diesel was like pumping it up, and I was like, this looks horrible.
Because Vin Diesel's been in multiple video games, just never a good Fast and Furious game.
No.
He's in that upcoming Arc game. He had that Drive game like 20 years ago.
Oh God, I forgot about that one. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder why this man is famous, but then I just think of Guardians of the Galaxy and I'm like, that's it. But that might be a more cynical thing to say, but sometimes I'm just like, how did he get to where he
With a name
is?
like Vin Diesel, you can get pretty far in life.
That is very, very true. Or maybe people just mistook him for The Rock and they're like, oh my gosh, this isn't The Rock. This is Vin Diesel. This is his long lost cousin. I don't know.
He's Lil Rock.
Little Rock. There we go. But yeah, for me, I haven't really been watching any TV as of late. I need to get back into it. I've been sorely behind myself. But enough about me. Without further ado, we'll be right back after this introduction to our Fast X movie review.
You remember my father?
Hernan Reyes.
My father was a horrible man. Very bad daddy. But I kind of liked him, and you took him from me when you stole our money and left us with nothing but suffering.
That's what I came here for. To end that suffering. Oh, and I didn't take that money. I burned it.
And we are back. You just heard a little snippet from the movie Fast X, aka Fast and Furious 10 Part 1. This movie is directed by Louis Leterrier and is written by plenty of people. We have Justin LinGary, Scott Thompson, and Dan Mazeau. And the synopsis is as follows. As always, Dominic Toretto and his family are targeted by the vengeful son of drug kingpin Hernan Reyes and stars Vin Diesel, Brie Larson, Jordana Brewster, Jason Momoa, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, and so much more. I think, Devin, you had said this is the Infastinity War, the beginning of the Fast and Furious franchise, the beginning of the end, essentially.
Yeah, without spoiling too much, that is like that's all I can think about at the end.
Yeah, it was. I put that in our initial reaction. I was like, that was nice. That was a good one. But I'm actually going to pass it over to Devin here in a second. But just to let you guys know how we break down our reviews. If you are new here, welcome. We usually get into our spoiler-free thoughts, which is our initial reactions. Of course, this is a spoiler-free review. And then we're just going to dive into our final thoughts and then our ratings for this film. And then we'll close on out. So, Devin, what are your thoughts on Fast X?
Good old Fast X. Yes. I'd say I feel like Fast 9 was definitely a movie that was pretty widely panned by most people. Like, just wasn't enjoyed much. I definitely didn't enjoy it. I thought it was just kind of a low for the series, it felt like. And then I feel like this was definitely a needed boost into the series and definitely an improvement from 9. Going into this, it feels like, you can say this for any movie, but I feel like for this series especially, this movie is anything that it's what you put into it, like going into the theater. Like if you're going into it expecting to laugh at the ridiculousness and the unbelievableness and just all the crazy things that happens, you can do that. It'll be a good time. You can laugh at it. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. If you go in as a huge Fast and Furious fan, you're going to love it because it just plays into all of that and has some great fan service. But if you go in as a strictly movie critic, you're not going to have a good time because there's a lot to critique and there's a lot of flaws, just like the entire franchise. And sometimes you just got to put that aside for a couple hours and kind of just try to soak it all in and enjoy it for what it is. And I feel like this is the perfect example of that. Every movie in this series is like that, but this one really puts it over the top. And I think Jason Momoa is definitely the burst of energy that this series needed, because they tried to make John Cena a villain in Fast 9. Just did not work. It was very hard to watch. It's not his strong point as far as an actor goes. And I think John Cena might have been my favorite part of this movie. His kind of reversal and comeback in this movie was definitely a pleasant surprise. He got to play the role that he's more accustomed to. He's kind of like the funny uncle, like definitely Blockers vibes in this one, where he gets to do a more comedic role. He's not playing some kind of serious brother bad guy that's just kind of coming back for revenge against Vin Diesel, who looks nothing like him, and they don't look related in any way, and they still don't. Just one of those things where everybody has to be related.
It's like Star Wars.
It's even worse than Star Wars. I was looking at the character list, and I was like, there really is only like 3 or 4 people who don't have relatives in this movie, in this series. Like everybody has to be related in some way, or else you're just not invited to the barbecue.
Not invited to the post-movie barbecue, which, man, oh man, those Coronas look nice and crispy. Crispier than the ones you can actually probably find in the store, honestly. But I agree with Devin when it comes to a lot of his initial reactions. But did you have anything else you wanted to say before I give mine? Just wanted to make sure that you were saying your piece.
Yeah, it's just over-the-top ridiculousness. Like, suspension of disbelief is... You leave it at the door when you're walking in the theater. Like, you just need to ignore everything because there's just so much ridiculous things that happen that it's hard to watch at times, but you just kind of gotta suck it up and enjoy the ride, even though there's not much riding anymore. More so just chasing, no more racing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. More chasing, no more racing.
That's pretty much what it's come down to.
Yeah, I mean they're like these, international spies. This is like, everything that Mission Impossible isn't. But I mean, for my initial reactions, I mean, I tweeted about it right after I had saw it on our Twitter page over at Film Optics. Again, that's Optics with an X. I stated that this movie is a significant step up from the previous installment, which being Fast 9, and is the best movie in the franchise. Personally, I think since Fast 7, the action scenes were very intense. And of course, Jason Momoa playing this Joker-esque amusing villain, just having a lot of fun. I did not expect that.
He's just so zesty in this movie.
Yeah, he really is. And, he kind of just, they're like, hey, like loosen up. Like he's always been playing these serious roles, whether it's, in Game of Thrones, obviously Aquaman. If you saw him in the series C, which is very good, he's always playing these very serious roles. And it was a breath of fresh air, at least for me, to see him in a different element. And I think putting him into the Fast franchise really allowed him to kind of spread his wings and kind of just have fun for, a few movies here. Like I said, he's always doing those dramatic roles, but like Devin had said, this is essentially the beginning of the Fast and Furious franchises in Fastinity War. So this is their version of the Infinity War, essentially. But this cast is legit stacked. I was like, my gosh, how did somebody had to take a pay cut somewhere. You got Charlize Theron, obviously Michelle Rodriguez, the legacy characters from Fast, Furious, Brie Larson, Jason Statham. He's on the cover of the poster, so that is not a spoiler. Of course, like Devin said, Mr. John Cena makes an appearance back. We got Ratcatcher. We got Sunday from Game of Thrones, Natalie, and just everyone's here.
We got to shout out Thad Castle. Thad Castle's got a pretty big role here.
Yes, Mr. Thad Castle makes an appearance in Fast 10.
And he's a major character. Did not expect that.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job. He's been in a lot of variety of roles throughout the years. I know that he was also in Titans. I'm not sure if you know that, Devin, but he's also in that DC TV show that you refuse to watch. But, he does a really good job. I think
he also had his own Reacher series.
Yes, he did on Amazon. And I heard that was fantastic. I've been meaning to catch up on that. Like I said, I'm so behind on TV. I'm actually embarrassed to even admit that. But it is what it is. But as far as my initial reactions go, yeah, it is a fun movie. And I think Chris Stuckman actually said this in his review where it's like, he didn't like using the term, turn your brain off. Because obviously, like Devin said, you can either look at this there's so many different ways you can approach this movie. And like Devin had mentioned, if you're approaching this with like a critical eye, then you're just not going to have a good time. And I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Like, I would watch this movie again if one of my friends wanted to go see it. I don't know if I would own it on Blu-ray just because there are so many prior, but overall, it's like I had a good time with it. I laughed, my critic screening was a mix of fans and critics / press, I guess you could say. And like everyone, like critics and fans, everyone was just laughing and just having a ball.
Our theater was going wild.
Just going wild and just being entertained by this movie. And I know a lot of people have said that, it's just gone ridiculous and over the top. And it is over the top, but I've always tell people, like, this is like live action anime. Like, I'm so used to this. Like, I don't care how over the top it is because I don't care if it doesn't make sense because this is just a balls to the wall, great time at the theater. And this franchise has a huge loyal fan base. Clearly, this is technically their 11th movie if you count the Hobbs and Shaw all together within this franchise. And, it's with these same characters that have stuck through this franchise through thick and thin. Like we said, Fast 9 was not great at all. I really prefer John Cena being, the cool uncle in this movie. And, you have Dom's child, who I swear has changed races at least like 5 times within the past, 5 or 6 movies. But, it is what it is. It's always some random other kid. It's always someone else playing Dom. It's never the same person, which is fine. But I just think it's so funny how, I'm like, I still don't know what, who this kid is. But overall, all jokes aside, it was full of laughs. We get some great cameos in this movie as well. Some longtime favorite cameos and some unexpected cameos as well. But I'm going to shut up now because I'm just going to keep talking here. Devin, is there anything else you wanted to mention about Fast X in our non-spoiler section?
Yeah, without spoiling it, the mid-credit scene is definitely worth the wait to watch, I'd say. It did get spoiled
if you weren't
online.
Spoiled by it on Twitter already.
It was like exclusive. Like, no, it's a spoiler. It's not an exclusive. Why are you spoiling the mid-credit scene? That was so stupid. But that was one of my favorite parts. Definitely got a good chuckle out of me. That's just that line, of course.
Yeah. I mean, we already knew what was going to happen and who was going to show up. And if you know, good for you, but don't ruin it for anyone else because we're not even going to, mention who it is. But I feel like they had to bring, a lot of people back for this franchise in order to keep it, to end on a high note, really, because I want them to close this way, either, how it began or just balls to the wall. Just, we don't care. Like, obviously Fast 9 was way more self-aware than I feel like it should have been. This one, they definitely dialed it back. And no one goes to space, which is good. There's no space anything in this movie.
They do mention it.
They do. They do mention it for sure. But I just had a great time with this. This is what I wanted from a Fast and Furious movie, and I think I got that and more for sure. But let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings here. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for Fast X Part 1?
Yeah, I guess that's what we're going to have to call it, depending on what they title the second one. Fast XX, Fast XXX.
Is it gonna go to Triple X?
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter saying that if they go Triple X, they can do a crossover between Vin Diesel's other movie franchise, Triple X.
Oh,
they
God.
can do that.
No life.
But yeah, I'd say for this one, it's a very flawed movie, like they all are. Like at this point in the franchise, 10 movies in, it's going to have some warts. It's going to have some repeat kind of ideas, and they do a good enough job of trying to freshen things up. But overall, if you can just go into this one open-minded and just kind of check your bags at the door. Just be ready for an outrageous, over-the-top adventure. And it's definitely enjoyable in that way. There's definitely too many characters, too much going on. Like, everyone's split up. The editing is all over the place. Like, some scenes just end, and then that's it. Like, then they just
even during
end
the
abruptly.
beginning. Yeah. It was just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, we're here already. But sorry. Continue.
Oh, we're going to this place. We're going to that place. Oh, we're back here. Oh, who are you? I don't know who you are. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm supposed to care about you. You're dying, and I don't care because I don't know who you are. But yeah, that's just how it goes, I guess. Overall, pretty enjoyable. Definitely has some issues, but at the end of the day, the fans are gonna love it. Like, there's a lot of fan service here. They're gonna eat it up, and I'm glad that they're able to have that. As far as the score goes, I'll probably go with like a 65 overall. Like, obviously very flawed, but still enjoyable at the end of the day.
Yeah. For me, I would give this probably like a solid between a 70 and 75. I would go more so I would go some more of 75 because I did enjoy this for what it was. Like Devin had said, there's always like, you can sit here and nitpick this movie all day long, but like, that's not what this kind of movie is. I feel like a lot of critics that, we see online it's like, again, you can't look at this movie with a critical eye, not really, because how ridiculous it's going to be going in. And so like saying how ridiculous this is again doesn't really, it's not a valid point. It's not a sound argument or a sound reason for me, at least.
This movie and the cars in it are not grounded in any way.
That was so funny.
That's just the facts.
That is just the facts. It's, this is just a movie where you have to accept it for what it is, and you have to choose.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. Choose if you're gonna have a good time or not. Because if you're going into this movie, like, oh, I'm gonna hate watch this movie, or I'm just gonna look at it with this extreme critical eye. Guess what? Universal doesn't care about like. I don't think they really care.
$500 million later, they're fine.
Yeah, like they are totally fine. They pumped out a good Fast and Furious movie. So that's all I could. All I wanted was for this to be better than 9, and it was. And I was I was pleased. Well, yeah, like bring on the next one, because that cliffhanger is. It's pretty good. I was like, oh, wow. Like, okay, we're here. So with our initial reactions and our ratings out of the way, it's time to give I guess you could say the overall, the official podcast.
The average.
The average of 65 and 75.
I can do that one on my head. That would be 70.
There we go. An official 70 out of 100 score from us here at the Film Optics Podcast. And with all that said, that is a wrap on today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. And as always, make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optics Podcast with a movie lover in need. And now let's take a sneak peek of what's coming up next on the show. So, what we have coming up next, there's so much going on. The summer blockbusters, this is like the beginning of summer blockbusters. Like Fast X going forward. We're going to be covering The Little Mermaid, giving our spoiler-free review on that. Of course, we're going to be covering Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Very excited for that. As well as Transformers, Rise of the Beast, and much, much more. We are in full swing when it comes to the summer blockbuster as of now. And what you can listen to on our podcast right now, you can listen to our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 spoiler-free review, as well as our Star Wars Visions Season 2 review, and our Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret review. Devin, have you seen that movie yet? I feel like you need to see this movie. It's very good. It's very good. I cannot recommend it enough. Just saying, Rachel McAdams, she's back, baby. But we'd like to thank you guys all for listening. And remember, if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. I'm Christian, and that was Devin signing off, and we'll see you guys at the next barbecue.
Peace. Family.
Family.